Hi everyone, glad to meet you again in this new lecture always about literary genres. Today we will try to deal with and introduce one of the commonest and the most important literary genres, which is poetry or verse. Now you know that the position that this literary form holds is unique and distinctive, as it is considered and called the crown of literature. The crown of literature. So, in this lecture, we'll try to detail the different features, right, and specificities of this form of literary expression, starting from the definition, the origin of the word, types, and the structure of verse or poetry. Now, if we look at the word poetry here, this word is taken from the Greek word poio. Right, so it is originated in the Greek language from the Greek word poio, which means to make or to produce. Poetry refers to the verb to make or to produce in the Greek language. Now here, of course, it refers to the poet's function when he makes or produces poetry, or poems. Good. Now, if you want to define or give a precise definition for this noble form of expression, we have found here a lot of definitions by many poets, by many scholars, and by many educators. But I chose for you here two important definitions which seem for me complementary. They complete each other. Each other. First, I have the definition of the Romanticist poet, who is Samuel Taylor Coleridge, who is considered the father of Romanticism, and who published his famous collection of poems, which is entitled Lyrical Ballads, with his, of course, partner William Wordsworth. Now, Samuel Coleridge defined poetry as what? The best words in the best order. He said that poetry is the best words in the best order. So the first origin of the word is poio, which means make or produce. Then we have the definition of Coleridge, Samuel Taylor Coleridge. He said it is, or poetry is the best words in the best order. Now, if we notice and observe this definition, we find that it consists of two main parts. Poetry is the best words. Here, it refers to diction. One of the main important qualities of and features of poetry is diction. It is the careful selection of words, because in poetry we don't use any language, any words, the common words. We use specific words, specific language, which is carefully selected, of course, to serve certain rhetorical purposes, certain, metrical purposes to fit, of course, the meter of the poem. Here, diction, I mean the best words, the carefully selected words, and in the best order here means or refers to precision. Precision. It means the respect of those strict rules, that govern the meter of the poem in terms of the syllables, in terms of the number of feet in that poetic line, and so on. Alright, so here we have, under this interesting definition, okay, a combination of the two key features of poetry, which are diction, the best words, and precision, the best order. Alright, this is the first definition. Another important also definition which I found very interesting, it is introduced by Robert Frost, one of the prominent, right, and modern, right, American poets who define poetry as it is when an emotion has found its thought and the thought has found words. He said that poetry is when an emotion has found its thought. So here he focuses on what? We have Robert Frost. An emotion has found its thought, and the thought has found words. Has found words. Now here, as you see, this is also a very important definition because it completes, we can say, completes the first definition. Now here he said what? He said the best words in the best order. Here he focuses on the external, okay, form of poetry, words and order. Right. But second one, he focuses on the internal, if you can say, material of poetry, which are the emotion and the thought as a source, okay, of poetry. So here, this one is, if you can say, represents the external, right, facet of poetry, and this one represents the internal facet of poetry, or internal constituents. So, thoughts and emotion, right, which are within the essence of poetry, and we have words and the order of words which represent the form of the poem. Alright, that's why I said they are complementary. Now, if you want to define poetry also in a simpler way, we can use the academic definition we find in many books of literature, and we define it as poetry is the form of literary expression. Okay, it's a form of literary expression that uses aesthetic, right, and rhythmic or metrical qualities of language to evoke meaning. Alright, aesthetic and rhythmic. Alright, something beautiful and something also metrical, referring here to division of syllables and lines and so on. Clear? Go. So here, these are the main important definitions of the genre of poetry. Now we move on to the next section in this lecture, which is about types of poetry. But before this, we want to refer just that when we speak about metrical patterns and rhythmic qualities of poetry, here we mean, of course, the commonest type of poetry we know. Okay, the traditional, we can say, poetry we already we are familiar with, because nowadays there are many types of poetry, which don't subject to this definition, like that metrical order and that strict precision in terms of form, in terms of sound, and so on. For example, we have the free verse, and its leader, its leading figure and poet is William Bolton Yeats, who is very well known for his use, and wide use of the free verse. We have also the experimental poetry. We have also the absurd poetry, and so on. So all these, are modern, you can say, types or forms of poetry that don't subject or belong to that canon and academic definition, right? Because they are free. They are free of those conventions, of those rules which govern, right, the poetry or the canon poetry we know. Clear? Now, when we speak about types of poetry now in general, we can highlight two main types of poetry, which are narrative poetry. Narrative poetry, as its name here implies, it tends to narrate a story. It's long poetry, right, which narrates a story and has a plot structure, has characters, and so on. So this type, for example, we can mention here the epic, right, poetry, like the epic of the Iliad, right, of Homer, and also the Odyssey of Homer also. Clear? We can also mention romance, the romance also, that narrative poetry which tells a story also. We can also mention another type which is romance, a ballad also, ballad which is a kind of poetry to be, okay, poetry in the form, I don't know, of a song, right, but it narrates a story, okay, narrates a story, form of a song which narrates a story in the form of a poem. On the other hand, we have also another type, second major type of poetry, which is lyric poetry. So we have first types. We have A, narrative, and we have B, lyric. Lyric poetry is short, okay, poetry which is concerned with specific event, specific idea, specific emotion, and so on. Okay, and so on. For example, here we can mention the example of Emily Dickinson's, alright, poetry, mainly her little and short masterpiece, I am nobody, who are you? Okay, I am nobody, who, it's very short here, I am nobody, who are you? Very short poem, which is very expressive and meaningful. When we talk about meaning, by the way, in poetry, we can here remember also another important division at the level of the poem's meaning. Poem's meaning, right, or significance. We can here, for example, differentiate between what we call denotation and connotation at the level of the meaning. We have two levels of meaning in poetry. We have what we call denotation. What a poem denotes is that superficial, right? You can say that apparent meaning we can learn, right? We can infer from a poem. We can read in a poem, right? Denotation. Denotation. And here also we have, we can say, connotation. We need to know these terms because they help us in analyzing, alright, this genre. Clear, this genre. So, denotation is that apparent or superficial, alright, meaning of poetry we can easily read in any poem. But we say connotation, it means what the poem connotes. It means that hidden, that deep, right, that implicit, right, meaning or host of meanings we should guess and we should read and we should elicit from that poem. From that poem. Here we work at a more profound level. At a more profound level, whereas here we work at a superficial level. Okay, superficial level. Good. Now we move on to another important element in poetry, which is the structure of poetry or of verse. Structure of poetry or of verse. Clear? Now, if you compare between poetry and the prose, the previous genre, we said in the prose, the basic unit in prose is what? Is sentence, or not? Now, how about poetry? Or in a poem, what do we have? In a poem, the basic constituent and element okay, in poetry is the line, or what we call the verse, or the verse. Alright, line or the verse. Now, let's make this interesting comparison between the two genres. We have prose, and we have poetry. Clear? The basic unit in prose is sentence. Here, poetry is line or verse. Now here a group of sentences, what do they form to us? A group of sentences in prose, they form to us a paragraph. A paragraph. Here we have a paragraph. Alright. Now the counterpart of the paragraph in poetry, it means when we have a group of lines or a set of lines, we form what we call a stanza. Stanza. Right, stanza. So, the counterpart of paragraph in prose, alright, or paragraph of prose is the stanza in verse or in poetry. Stanza. So, stanza is a set of lines, group of lines we find in a poem, and this group of lines are separated from the other, okay, parts or the other, lines of a poetry or of a poem. Good. Now this stanza, we said it consists of a group of lines, and it has many cases. If this stanza consists of two lines, only two lines, for example, two lines, then space, two lines, space, and two lines. Here, these two lines are called couplets. Clear? Are called couplets. So right here, we have couplet in stanza. Right. Now, if the stanza consists also of three lines, it's called triplet. Triplet. Three lines together in one unit, then another space, then three lines, and so on. If also we have also another possibility, when the stanza contains or is made of four lines. Here it's called quatrain. It's called quatrain. Quatrain. It's called here quatrain. Clear? Quatrain is a stanza which consists of four lines. Now, of course, this division is based on the poem's meter. Okay, meter, division of syllables, division of feet, or in that poetic and that poetic line, and also is based on the rhyme, also on the rhyme. Okay, the final, they can say, sound in a poetic line. It's called the rhyme. The final poet element or sound in a poetic line is called a rhyme. Like in Arabic, we have a rawi. Here also in poetry in English, we have what we call the rhyme. Rhyme is a rawi, the same. Clear? The same. Good. Now here we have these types of also stanzas, couplet, triplet, and quatrain. Alright, depending on, as we said, the meter and also on the rhyme of every poem. Good. Every poem. There's also another interesting term we need to explore. Okay, in the structure of poetry, we need to learn about its meaning, right? Because it is a widely used term in the world, right? In the world of verse, which is the sonnet. We usually also hear this word sonnet. Shakespearean sonnet and so on. What does it mean? Now, first, sonnet is taken from the Italian word sonetto. Sonetto, right? Sonetto here, what does it mean? Sonetto here, it refers to that short lyric poem, right? It is short lyric or short song, we can say. Right? Little lyric or little song. It used in the past, okay, in the Italian arts, okay. It was called sonetto, right? Now in English literature, when we say sonnet, we mean by it that a group of lines or a combination of lines which consists of 14 lines. 14 lines. When they come together, they form to us in poetry what we call sonnet, a sonnet. Now, this sonnet, which consists of 14 lines, is based on the iambic pentameter. What we call the iambic pentameter, it's a particular meter or pattern of poetry in English, right? And those 14 lines, when they are based on this, right, iambic pentameter, they are called a sonnet. They are called a sonnet. Clear? A sonnet. Now, in these 14 lines, in every line we have 10 syllables. 10 syllables, right, which are arranged and all according to specific, mainly, right, specific rhythm and mainly rhyme. Mainly rhyme. Clear? They are ordered and arranged. These syllables or 10 syllables in every line according to a particular order of those syllables. Number one, also according mainly here on the rhyme. Alright, because the type of the rhyme here determines the type of the sonnet. We have two major types of sonnets, right? Types of sonnets. We have more, but we will focus only on these commonest and popular, you can say, right, and common types. We have number one, the Italian or the Petrarchan sonnet. The Italian or the Petrarchan sonnet. The Petrarchan. Number one. Here it refers to the founder of this sonnet, who is Petrarch. Okay, an Italian poet who founded, this poetic structure, which is the sonnet, according to this particular and specific order of rhymes. Now, here we have, as usual, 14 lines, and every line consists of 10 syllables, some stressed, some unstressed, and so on, according always to the form and the order of that iambic pentameter, and they have the following rhyme. Okay, number one, we have A, B, B, A, B, B, A, C, D, C, and D, C, D. Here they are. A, B, B, A, B, B, A, C, D, C, and D, C, D. Now here, if you count the number of letters here, we have 14 letters. And everyone represents the rhyme, the final letter, or sound in every line, in every poetic line of the sonnet. A, B, B, A. Remember here the A, the first line should be similar to the fourth line. And second and third similar. Remember here sky, here try, here go, here fall. Here also sky, dry. Here also, I don't know, no, right. And so, example, here CDC, two similar, the same thing always, alright. And second type of sonnets, we have what we call the English or the Shakespearean, Shakespearean sonnets, which is named after the famous English poet, playwright, and so on, William Shakespeare. It's called the English, or also the Shakespearean, or also the Elizabethan. The Elizabethan referred to the golden age of, the appearance, emergence of, or the life of Shakespeare. The Elizabethan era. So, Shakespearean or the English sonnet also is based on a particular order of rhymes, within those 14 lines, which consists every one, of 10 syllables. Now, we have this order. We have A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, and G, G. We have A, B, as you see here, A, B, A, B, right. We have C, D, CD. We have now EF, EF, and GG. EF, EF, and GG. Here, GG. So this order of sounds represents, okay, the final, or the order of the final final rhymes, right, or the rhymes in every poetic line of this sonnet, which is Shakespearean sonnet. So here we have now showed you, right, or introduced to you the two major types of sonnets, Petrarchan and Shakespearean sonnets. We need to learn about all these terms, because if you want to explore any field of science, of knowledge, right, you have to master its terminology. It's a must, an obligation, clear. So when you want to analyze, okay, any poetry or any poem or any piece of poetry, you have those tools which enable you to read it and analyze it critically. We learn about these terms and about the elements of poetry in this lecture in order to analyze it properly, alright, using the appropriate terminology and also highlighting the different elements that constitute and construct this noble genre of literature, which is poetry, which, as I said before, based mainly, right, on the diction, choice of words, right, precision, but metrical order of syllables and feet, right, in poetic lines, right. And just to mention here, one of the important features also is the rhythm in poetry. Poetry, we have also what's called rhythm. Rhythm is that particular order of syllables, of feet, all right, which create a particular tone or sound within the poetic line, all right, or within the poem itself. Good. So I hope that we have covered almost all the angles of my introduction to this genre, which is very interesting and which we need to learn about all its details, right? Because as we are not native speakers, we really need to, if you can say, have that full mastery, at least, or almost, okay, coverage of those terms used to analyze this a bit difficult, okay, genre in terms of analysis, in terms of also depth, in terms also of its depth and its specific and unique elements. Thank you so much. Next time we meet, inshallah, to introduce the two basic features and characteristics of poetry in our next lecture. So see you then. Thank you.